It's time for another lesson, and for those of you who have been following my videos, we're now going to cover some old ground, and that is to make sure the board is set up correctly. Remember, when you set up the board, that the white square should always be to a player's right, and you know this is set up properly because even for the player playing black, it's also with the white square to their right. And you notice how we've set them up with the rooks on the ends, then the knights, then the bishops, the queen, and the king. And remember that the queen always gets her color. Now, we covered in another lesson the Roy Lopez, and that's an opening that's going to be starting with the king's pawn. We're going to cover another one, and then we're going to cover some general rules for the middle game that you need to be aware of. I've already covered some general rules for the opening a couple lessons ago. So what we're going to be looking at here is the Queen's Gambit Accepted. And so let's see how this develops out. All right, we're gonna play out the Queen's pawn on the first move. We're going to follow that up a matching with the Queen's pawn against, and then we're going to play a gambit. We're willing to right now allow black to take a piece, a pawn, but we're going to get it back, so there is a strategy to that. You just got to know how to do that. So we've got pawn to queen 4 in the old descriptive. Pawn is going to accept. And now we're going to continue to develop. We're going to play out our knight. We want to play out our knights, our bishops. We want to gain control of the center as much as we can. And then black is going to play out their knight as well. We're still fighting for control of the center. Following that, we're going to play out to protect the pawn, and also to be able to threaten the queen's pawn here. So now black needs to do something about that. All right, black is going to, let's see, we played it, okay, to play out their king's pawn to be able to open up the diagonal for their black bishop. And now we're finally going to take back that pawn that we lost early on. We're going to take that back, and then black wants to go ahead and see if we'll take, so that we can trade off queens, and then the king will be unable to castle. But we're too smart for that. What we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and castle to our king side. So now the rook is going to be protecting the queen, and we don't have to worry about not being able to castle. And then now black is going to go ahead and try to force eventually the bishop off of their good square. The white queen is going to play to bishop 2 to be able to protect the bishop and cover another diagonal. And then black is going to try to play out a minor piece, their knight. So we are at this point 7 moves out. We're not quite at the middle game. I'd say the middle game really starts when you can be able to link your rooks, and what I mean by that is you've moved these minor pieces off and they are linked with one another to protect one another. Same thing for the black side. But what's something that I'd like to cover here, some general rules for the middle game, and that is 1, have all your moves fit into definite plans. Don't play aimlessly. Number 2 is when you're ahead of material, exchange as many pieces as possible, especially queens. Number 3, avoid doubled, isolated, and backward pawns. Number 4, in cramped positions, free yourself by exchanging pieces. Number 5, do not expose your own king while queens are still on the board. Number 6, all combinations are based on double attack. Number 7, if your opponent has 1 or more pieces exposed, look for a combination. Number 8, to attack the king, you must open a file, or less often a diagonal, to gain access for your heavy pieces, queens and rooks. Number 9 is to centralize the action of all your pieces. And number 10, the best defense is a counterattack. So if you wonder what better players are thinking, these are some of the 10 rules that they have in their wheelhouse. And remember, we already covered 10 other rules, general rules for the opening in an earlier lesson. Good luck, scholars, with this week's lesson. You've just been exposed to the Queen's Gambit Accepted. And if you want to know, well, where does this come from, these openings? There are books on that. In this instance, I have an older book, and so you see here that there's variations to it, and it's Modern Chess Openings. And this is quite an old edition, but they have other editions that are going to be coming in. And so the important thing is that you have a knowledge of how to move the pieces, why you need to move the pieces, so that you don't make weak moves and they make stronger moves, your opponent, and eventually the number of strong moves against your weak moves proves your undoing. Best of luck, and we'll see you next week.